Welcome to Always Sunny on Cybertron. I am your host. I am Patty the Prime.
My name is the L16, and I was good friends with Steve until he died. I miss Steve.
I'm Red. Should we say our real names now?
Well,
Yeah,
Patty
I'm
already
Red.
says his. I'm
I
Lugia.
said I was Patty the Prime.
I know you said like Patty the Prime, but just like
Yes.
okay. Patty the Prime.
What-
We'll just call them Patty for short for the episode. I'm gonna be honest. It kind of bothered me a little bit throughout the movie that everyone's like, "Oh, I'm B127, I'm D-16," and then like other people just had regular names. Like, why does he get to be named Orion? Why does he get to name Jazz? Does he even know what Jazz is?
Today we're
So,
talking about the wonderful world of Transformers, specifically Transformers 1.
And we're recording this on Martin Luther King Day. Some parallels because of their shared struggle for freedom. I don't know. Want to hop into the news?
Let's do it.
Sure.
A few days ago, David Lynch passed away. David Lynch is probably one of the most famous directors of all time. He's like one of the few people that almost everyone knows the name of. Like Kubrick. In fact, his name is basically an adjective. When people say something is Lynchian, people automatically like know that it's got a very surreal, dreamlike quality to it. One of the he's an artist who had like such a like Kafka, like Lovecraft. He's one of those like artists that just has like he's left an insane mark on the medium. So rest in peace, David. If anyone in the audience has not watched a David Lynch movie, all of them are worth a watch. Even Dune. His shows are worth a watch too. His shows are probably what like most people even know him from, Twin Peaks and whatnot. We talked about him before.
A
Blue
couple
Velvet
times
and
actually. Yeah.
yeah, and Blue Velvet, which is I would say Blue Velvet's probably like the movie that like represents his work the most. We also saw Wild at Heart, which is its own little fun experiment, and he's done fun experiments before. Like Lost Highway, Eraserhead, Inland Empire, those all sort of fit his MO. But he also did Mulholland Drive. But he also did The Straight Story, which is a relatively normal film, and same with The Elephant Man. He's got range. Wild at Heart's probably one of the more unique ones because it's sort of his attempt to do a sort of like Bonnie and Clyde thing. It's also like an adaptation of both a book called Wild at Heart, but also The Wizard of
Bonnie and
Oz.
Clyde meets the Wizard of Oz. Yeah, Bonnie and Clyde meets the Wizard of Oz. A very weird crossover when you think about it.
So Lynch had emphysema because of smoking, and unfortunately, ever since COVID, he actually has not been able to leave his house. Basically, likely like due to like breathing issues, and unfortunately, he passed away because of the fires, which exacerbated his emphysema. Heart goes out to everyone in the California fires. A lot of people's like homes are being burned, so it's unfortunate.
Oh, on to some lighter news. This past week has been, at least as of the time of recording this past week has been rampant with Switch 2 rumors, and it got to the point where Nintendo decided, you know what, fine, here's the reveal, leave us alone. So yeah, we got our first look at the Switch 2, and more importantly, a new Mario Kart. But more importantly, people are upset that Donkey Kong got redesigned.
He kind of looks like his movie counterpart.
I don't really care.
It's
Like, I
fine.
get Donkey Kong's iconic. Yeah, like, the design is... Only the eyes, really, are different. At least from what I can see.
But that Yoshi burger, though, they put that shit in Radiator Springs. That's crazy.
To be real, the redesign is probably only for the game. The game itself looks like it has a more cartoony style. It looks like it's going for something like Mario Wonder. But that aside, Switch 2.
Yeah.
It's
For some reason,
bigger.
the way the it's bigger. For some reason, the way the Joy-Cons work are different this time. I don't get what that's about.
At the very least, it's backwards compatible with regular Switch games.
Probably like the first time since the Super Nintendo, Nintendo's just done like a very straightforward upgrade, kind of like
GameCube and
what
Wii.
PlayStation does. No, the what? How's the GameCube and Wii a straightforward upgrade?
You can play GameCube games on the Wii.
Well, I didn't mean like backwards compatibility. I meant just
okay.
like
Never mind.
like how PlayStation goes from like PlayStation 1 to 2 or PlayStation 2 to 3. This one it just kept the gimmick of the last one. It didn't like do anything crazy. Compared to like I think the only other time they ever did that was with the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color. and with the NES and Super Nintendo, because the
Yeah, so
N64 had some funky shit going on with the controller. GameCube too. Then we got the Wii, which is a little movie stick, and the DS has a touchscreen. 3DS has 3D. Wii U's just I don't know what the fuck they were thinking there.
People are still trying to
It's-
figure out why the Wii was the way it was.
I'm like 90% sure that the reason they made the Switch was because everyone was confused about how the Wii U worked, and they realized that, man, we should have just done what people thought we were gonna do.
Honestly, yeah, they never made it clear what the Wii U was even supposed to be. There was a time when it was revealed, people thought it was just an extension of the Wii based on the name alone.
By the way, to make it clear to our audience, all three of us own a Wii U.
here's a question. When's the last time you guys played your Wii U?
Years ago.
So
Ever
I
since
haven't
I
played a
got the
video game
Switch, I don't.
console in forever.
Ever since I got the Switch, I haven't really gone back.
I mean, there's a
You
lot of
say, Red?
games on there I like that I don't have on the Switch. So I did revisit it when I still played games. I just haven't touched a game in a while.
I think the last time I used my Wii U was like right before the eShop closed, so like a year or two ago.
Mm.
Yeah.
Revert back to the Switch 2 for a second. Best thing about all this is that if this trailer is anything to go by, our current Switch models will just shed their skin into the Switch 2. Don't even have to buy a new one.
So I'm gonna rip my Switch in half, in
Sheds
preparation.
its skin just like a reptile. Voila, Switch 2. Evolution. It's amazing.
I like how in the trailer there's one point where they zoom in on the joystick and like spin around, and it felt like a taunt. Like, oh, drift.
Joystick drift has always been a thing in a lot of controllers. It's just the Switch where it's the most apparent and frequent, and it doesn't help that the controllers themselves are $80 for a pair.
Of course, we need to address the most important question of all. Will the cartridges have new flavors?
Well, I mean, as of right now, this is just a reveal trailer. We're gonna get a full-on direct in early April, detailing more information. Actually, I do have one more question while we're on the subject. Going back to the Mario Kart game for a second, what do you guys think the gimmick is gonna be with this one?
Instead
what?
of the crazy 8, it's a 9 item.
I don't know. I didn't see the trailer, so I don't know.
Literally, it's just them driving on a dirt road.
Yeah, I don't know, because Mario Kart 7 was what, hang gliders? Mario Kart 8 was zero gravity. I don't know. Zero gravity thing is just kind of ripped off from like F-Zero, right? So maybe they'll just like take something from another series that they already own. They're gonna play it, and it's like, wait a second, why does this have a Star Fox section? Like, what's going on?
You're saying they're actually gonna take to the skies, not just gliding. They're gonna literally fly through the sky.
All Stars Transformed wants their idea back.
I always had an idea that I think would be a cool gimmick for Mario Kart, and that is like a grappling hook implemented onto the cart, which I feel like could be interesting in like track design. Like maybe you fly off a gliding strip and like a grappling hook latches onto like something moving below, so you're kind of flying through the sky.
I could
With-
imagine something
with
like that
the
for
hook?
like Wario's Gold Rush, where you could probably hook onto the wheel of the minecart and use that for a shortcut.
I think you could also like have fun with items that way, like a giant pair of scissors or something.
That would be fucking devastating over
Like
a bit.
like what if there was an item that like it shot the grappling hook, it latched onto another player, like to reel you in, but they like could have like a pair of scissors that would snip the line. I don't know. I just always had an idea that like imagine a grappling hook in Mario Kart. You could have some fun with that. Anyway, I think that does about do it for Switch 2. Shall we roll out?
Let's do it.
All right, let's roll out. So, Transformers 1, not to be confused with the 2007 Michael Bay film that could also be called Transformers 1. Also, not to be confused with
Yeah.
the 80s movie, because that was technically the first Transformers movie. Yeah, this isn't a great title. I don't understand why they didn't just call it Transformers Origins, but whatever.
Or Zero.
Anyway, Transformers 1, 2024. This was directed by Josh Cooley, who previously directed Toy Story 4. And the production history on this film isn't anything too fancy. Back when the fourth Michael Bay film released in 2014, that film became the highest-grossing movie of the year. And at that point, Paramount was like, "We want more Transformers." So they put a writer's room together to pitch projects for sequels and spin-offs. And one idea that came was a prequel set on Cybertron. And they decided, yeah, we're going to do that. Really, this movie just exists because Paramount wanted more money. The film took
And they didn't
inspiration
get that
from
much because this movie bombed.
tragically, yes. The film took inspiration from both the '86 Transformers movie as well as Frank Herbert's Dune. And while it was positively received, like you said, Red, it did not make back its money, only grossing 129 million against a budget of somewhere between 75 and 147 million. I have
Yeah.
heard it's doing better on like streaming, but
Yeah, from what I understand, it's been doing good numbers on streaming and VOD. Fun fact, video on demand, very valuable. I forgot which studio executive said, but he said that so you know how DVDs used to give like studios a lot of money, and because of that, they would like make movies that they knew they wouldn't like perform necessarily well at the box office, but they'd make their money in DVD later. A studio exec said that like how DVD back in the day used to make them a significant amount of money, and because of that, like that factored into a lot of movies success. Apparently video on demand has a very similar thing, as in people just like going on Amazon, going on YouTube and renting a movie, which I know you guys have done before. So yeah, you have contributed to Hollywood not dying. Thank you, I guess. But yeah, apparently, like those studio execs said that VOD sales are about like 80% of what DVD sales used to be. They took a hit, but it's still ultimately like good for them. Nice to know streaming didn't completely kill things, because new movies don't really get released to streaming immediately necessarily. You still, or not everyone has a streaming service, so people still rent.
before we jump into this, let me ask, guys, what is your experience with Transformers?
I saw the Michael Bay trilogy, and I grew up with like two of the animated series. So I grew up with Transformers Animated, which was I believe the one from like the like late 2000s with the kind of unique art style. And I saw one of the older ones. I think it was Transformers Armada, which is like one of the anime ones.
I think out of all three of us, I'm probably the least familiar with Transformers as a whole. Outside of this movie, I think the only one I've seen was the 2007 Michael Bay film, and that was it. I don't think I ever saw the sequels or anything before then. And I don't even remember much about the movie, to be honest.
Oh, I saw Bumblebee also. Forgot about that.
You say that you're the one of the three of us that knows the least about Transformers. I will challenge that statement because let me put it this way: the only piece of Transformers media that I've seen in its entirety all the way through is the ride at Universal Studios. Ching.
Hold the fucking phone. When you recommended this, you said like you had like some sort of attachment to Transformers. This is what you meant?
When I said what I said last week is that I had an interesting connection to this franchise, in that that's really my only exposure to it. Kind of like here's the thing. I know Transformers obviously, but I think I saw like half of the original Michael Bay movie, but I remember like nothing about it.
Ah.
It's just I don't know. I don't know how many franchises can you say the most you know about it is a theme park ride?
I mean, there's a good chance a lot of them. But all right,
All right.
sure.
It's kind of funny because rare episode where we're talking about a franchise where none of us are like really that big fans, because like I'll be honest, I barely remember jack shit about all the Transformers stuff I've seen. Like I know I saw the Michael Bay movies. I don't remember much about it. I don't have an attachment to those films. I only saw like one season of Transformers animated, and I don't like remember a ton about it. I remember liking it. I'm probably I might rewatch that one day, but I barely remember anything from. I remember nothing from Transformers Armada. I just remember it looked like an anime, and I spent years trying to find out what was that anime with that robot that looked like Optimus Prime, and then I was like, does Transformers have an anime? And then I looked in, and like there's like a couple, so I got a little confused, but like I don't know.
It's weird too because Transformers, or at least like when the first live action movie came out, that was already like a year after Cars, and as a kid, I was like really into cars. So seeing like all these vehicles that could
I bought the
transform into
toys.
like battle
To be clear,
robots.
I bought the toys. I had Transformers toys. I just did not have. I just didn't like care about the series for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, it came out during a time where I'd be like into that, but I just never did for whatever reason. I remember liking the first movie as a kid, but it's been like over 10, 15 years since I last saw it, and I don't remember anything about it aside from the ending, which gets memed on a lot.
Most of what I remember from the movie is from the third one, because Optimus Prime is a psychopath in that one.
How so?
Okay, so it's really funny actually watching the third movie after watching Transformers 1 is hilarious because here, Optimus is this like magnanimous leader. Here we see, Optimus become this like, great leader or whatever. And then in the TV show and whatnot, Transformers, Optimus Prime, he sort of like has a reputation of being like one of the greatest leaders, noble, non-violent in fiction. Transformers 3, he says many lines that would be really, really funny to hear after watching this movie. Some of my favorite lines are "kill 'em all." One of my favorite scenes is when a character begs for his life, and then Optimus Prime takes out a shotgun and executes him point blank.
What
That
events
happens in
happened to
Transformers
have
3.
him like be this fucking evil?
He's just a psycho in these movies, and he's not portrayed as like the bad guy for this, by the way, to be clear. He's just like a kind of a fucked up like war dude. He's like, and it's got like the same guy who voiced it in the cartoon, which is really funny because that must have like thrown people off. We're like, here's like Optimus Prime is like, we must work together to create a strong union so we might fight off the Decepticons. And then you're watching like the movie, and it's like, kill them all. And it's like, whoa, what the fuck?
So, dear audience, you're probably wondering, why are three guys who have little to no attachment to Transformers talking about a Transformers movie?
Because it's funny
Word
that
of mouth.
way.
Word of mouth.
Yes, word of mouth is one reason. Also, it's kind of fun sometimes to talk about stuff that we don't really know what we're getting into. But it's mostly word of mouth. I was the one who chose this movie because for the past few months, I've been seeing this movie everywhere online. People are saying, like, dude, Paramount fumbled the ball with this one. It's really good. It's the best Transformers movie. And I'll be honest, when this movie was being advertised, I didn't really care much for it because, like I said, I'm not a Transformers guy. The trailers didn't really sell me. Apparently, they didn't sell a lot of people. That's why it didn't do very well. But again, word of mouth and the fact that it's an origin story, I should give this a shot.
Even if you like aren't familiar with Transformers, we all know like Optimus and Megatron, so it is like just kind of like compelling. Be like the movie is like an origin story for them, and like they implied that they're friends to start. So it's like, oh, that's just kind of an inherently interesting story because we know how it ends. And I don't
But
know,
what
I've always kind
exactly
of
led
liked
up to that point?
yeah, I kind of like tragedies like this. It's a lot of people they're always like, oh, I don't like it when the ending's known, but I feel like with tragedies, like it makes like them better, like because you're just like, oh, damn, how did things go from this happy thing to the sad thing? And I was like, Also, I imagine it releasing on 9/11. Not the best premiere date.
Well, I mean, it premiered that day. It released on the 20th.
I'm just
That's
saying, Starscream transforms into a plane and then he like crashes into like a building. You're like, whoa.
Anyway, so what's the plot of Transformers 1? Well, it's an origin story, as we've established. It's the origin of Optimus Prime and Megatron, and how they were originally best friends, Orion Pax and D-16. They were good buddies until they
Yes.
weren't. But I'm
For
getting
some
ahead of
reason,
myself.
Optimus had a real name, but Megatron was just called D-16.
This movie's set on the planet of Cybertron, and all the robot inhabitants live beneath the surface in the city of Iacon. And they mainly spend all day mining for their main power source, which is known as Energon. While up on the surface, the Primes are looking for what is known as the Matrix of Leadership, which will restore all energy to the planet. And Orion and D-16 are usually the ones working in the mines, but through a series of events, they find a distress signal from one of the Primes and journey to the surface along with two other robots, named B and Alita, to see if this message and map could give them a clue to where to find the Matrix of Leadership. From there, they make some interesting discoveries about their planet.
Yes. Which we will now spoil. A Bug's Life? It's basically a Bug's Life where they're just like giving it to these aliens, like all the mining stuff. It's not given to the people. It's a tax.
It's weird because the opening kind of reminded me of Ants.
Yeah, like that's kind of like what you're given like the idea of like Cybertron, because like there's this queen bee and everyone's like doing all this mining work, and that's the hierarchy of this society if you want like a little shorthand, because it is like a complicated sci-fi world. So if you just like realize, oh, there's space ants, then it's like, all right, I got the deal now. Yeah, basically they find out this horrible thing, and what I I'm sort of getting into my opinions already, but what I thought was compelling about the movie was the fact that they kind of start off like Prince of Egypt, where we just kind of see how these like two friends kind of like get along before the rift forms. But what I like is how we see the rift form. That's sort of what makes these movies interesting. And what I thought was interesting was that Optimus or Orion, he was a bit of a troublemaker, who was already skeptical of authority. So when he found out about this, he wasn't too shocked, and he felt almost like validated. It was like, I just fucking knew something shady was going on. Compared to Megatron or D-16, who basically he was a goody two shoes, a rule follower. So him finding out that he's been lied to his whole life, he doesn't take it so smoothly, and he gets really angry and really violent.
He literally
Um,
says he's going to kill Sentinel Prime.
I'm gonna get into the ending a little later, but yeah, and it's actually really fucking interesting because one, that's actually like a pretty like good way to actually like sow disagreement. I've mentioned X-Men First Class to you guys like before we start recording, but it's very somewhat X-Men First Class, where you have Charles Xavier, who he's this like very rich guy with a very like easy to hide mutation. So like he's ultimately like had a very cozy life. So he's always like, oh, give peace a chance. Versus Magneto, who survived the Holocaust. So he's like, I've been genocided before. I can see the signs of it happening again. I'm not gonna like be, peace and love, nonviolent protest. I'm gonna be like, load up on guns. Which is where the MLK, Malcolm X comparisons gets brought up. In real life, Malcolm X was not and MLK were a lot more similar than apart than different. But generally in schools we kind of learned that one was nonviolent, one was violent. The actual plot is like actual like details of the plot is like very like, kind of like standard hero's journey sort of kids movie thing. But I think like this like running thread is what really like makes the movie work.
I would
Uh,
agree with you, Red. I think the relationship between Orion and D-16 is definitely the meat of the movie. It's interesting to see their relationship develop, and how you see his slow progression into becoming Megatron. Like it's
yeah.
not just
Oh,
instantaneous. Like the latter
one
half of the movie,
detail.
you see each scene, he slowly builds more and more to becoming Megatron. It's
That's
very
one thing
interesting.
I'm grateful for, because when that shift happens, I was reminded of Dogma, where Loki and Bartleby like kind of like swap personalities like at a moment's notice. But here, like, there's actually a reason why
It's like if
D16
Dogma was
becomes the way
good,
he
basically.
is.
It's kind of like if Dogma was like had a more coherent arc, I guess. So yeah, it was surprising because like going into this movie, I was like, oh, it's one of these kids movies, huh? It's like one of those, man, he's right behind. Like it was so like it was very generic kids movie, and it still felt like a kids movie the whole way through. But I appreciated how like it had more dramatic stakes, and then like it had sort of like Revolutionary War stuff, and they actually like killed people, and I was like, oh shit, that was unexpected because the first half of the movie, it felt like I was watching like Lego Ninjago or some shit. Like,
It's a
it's
kids
very
movie, but it's not afraid to go to like darker places.
ultimately though, I do think it kind of pulled its punches at the end. See, here's the thing, and this is sort of a bit of a pet peeve, just as I've gotten more into history, I've always thought the whole, if we kill him, we'll be just like him, thing was always kind of like dumb because, quite frankly, it's completely ahistorical. No one like actually believes that. So it's always just weird that how like kids movies are always just like push this idea. And like I with how like nuanced everything was here before, I didn't expect like that to be the sort of breaking point where he was like, we need to execute the dictator. Prime is like, Optimus is like, no, we can't execute him, or we'll be just as bad as him. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Just looking at like every situation that's comparable to real life. No, all those dictators got executed, and things are pretty fine afterwards. Like there have been cases where like dictators got killed, and the next guy, was also not like great. He was also a dictator, but like those had like completely like separate like issues. Like I thought it was gonna go like more that route where like it wasn't gonna be about like we kill Sentinel Prime, because I thought they were setting it up for like it was gonna be much more of like a ideological difference because like it's not even like the killing part that's really the issue. Like my issue is that at the end of the movie, I do not understand why Megatron is rebelling against Optimus, because he solved the problem. the conflict's resolved, everything's wrapped up in a neat bow. So I'm wondering, is like, well, why does like Megatron like fight Optimus in the future? Like, what's that about? Like, I thought like I was just confused at the end because I was just like, well, I mean, it just seems like everything got solved. Like, what's like everything got wrapped up in a neat bow. So like, I don't even get like why Megatron's like fighting Optimus in the future. So
I
like,
guess they
I'm
saw
just like,
Megatron's violent tendencies as like really destructive, and if he stayed in
well, yeah,
Iacon,
but
things would only get
that's why,
worse.
yeah, that's why he got like expelled. But like, I don't see like why Megatron like continues to like fight after because like, what's he fighting for? Because like his issue was like very specific to Sentinel Prime, and like Sentinel Prime is dead, and Optimus got like the Energon flowing again, so it's not like a resource issue. And so and like he's got his own like I don't know. It just feels like it would be very strange to me if like I haven't seen the new Mufasa Lion King prequel, but it'd be very strange to me if it was like Scar had like very legitimate issues with how things were ruled, and then at the end it was just like, well, I just want to be king, and I was like, well, like I don't know, it just kind of feels weird because like that didn't really feel like what Megatron's character was. He didn't seem power hungry. He just felt disillusioned by the institutions. But like I really don't see why like whether it's him or Optimus ruling like why he would have an issue with that because like they didn't really make him like have an ego or anything. So like I don't know. I felt like the ending was just like too neat. I was left with question like if it was just like its own standalone movie, it would probably be fine. But like the fact that it is like an origin story, I'm just kind of left at the ending. I was like, well, I don't like it shows how like they stop being friends, but I don't actually understand what their conflict is about.
Ending aside, would you say that you liked the movie?
So I'd definitely recommend it. I mean, I don't even think like the ending's bad. It's just like a bit too clean. I just have questions about it. I was like,
Maybe in
um,
a Transformers 2.
Given that I know like absolutely nothing about Transformers, I'm not sure how complex like the overarching narrative is for the entire franchise, but I went in a little anxious because I figured I would not really understand anything about what's going on. But honestly, no, this movie is very easy to follow, even if you haven't seen anything Transformers related. Like, I mean, obviously, like, the key players are Optimus Prime, Megatron, and like the whole focus is on their relationship and how that sort of breaks away. But even like a lot of the MacGuffins, even though they have like strange names like the Matrix of Leadership and all that, like it's still easy to understand what those are for and how they help the overall world and why our characters are searching for these. When I was watching, I was never really left confused about what was going on, so I appreciate it on that level, especially again as someone who doesn't know this franchise.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm 3 for 3. Like Lugia, actually, like all of us mainly, I don't really know much about Transformers. Again, my biggest experience is the ride, and I saw the first movie a long time ago, but I remember nothing about it. I thought this was pretty interesting. Like I said, I thought the relationship between Orion and D-16 was definitely the strongest part of the movie, and seeing their relationship develop as it went along was very fascinating. This is one of those movies where I feel like as it went along, it got better. Because like
yeah,
the beginning,
definitely.
it's very like focused on like jokes and everything, and the humor isn't bad, but it is like more hit or miss on my end, I'd say. I will say the AA Tron joke is a great. That got a good chuckle
Yeah.
out of me, especially with
What
since it is Keegan Michael
Keegan-Michael
Key
Key, yeah.
saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that
Um,
joke was great.
one random thing that was just like distracting for me is I feel like every like actor just like blended into their character well. Like I didn't even know that Brian T, Tyree Henry, and like Chris Hemsworth were like playing the main characters. The second Alita one spoke, I was like, that's Scarlett Johansson. Just immediately, I was like, that is Scarlett Johansson. Like, it's just kind of like funny, but like every other character, I feel like I didn't like notice at first or like they blended into their character like immediately. Like I didn't know John Hamm was Sentinel Prime. I didn't realize Lawrence Fishburne was Alpha Tron and Steve Buscemi was okay. I kind of know Steve Buscemi was Starscream, but like it fit better.
I
'Cause
could not
Starscream's always just
unhear
kind of
him like in the recording studio, like voicing Starscream as soon as I found out that was Steve Buscemi.
But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, was with me and Alita one, the whole time I was just like thinking like, Scarlett Johansson in the booth because like it also felt like for some reason her character was like louder than the others. Like it was mixed a little bit louder. So like I don't know, it just stood out to me. Not an issue though. Although I will say Alita one is probably like, I guess an issue with some of the side characters. They're a little bit like one note. Like Bumblebee is a little is. I mean he's not like like comic relief. I get like that's not I guess the accurate word, but he is like just sort of a it's like the motor. He's like the motor mouth, like sidekick, kind of character. And Alita, she doesn't know how much of her personality. Like she's just kind of like there for like Prime to talk to when Megatron isn't there. I don't know. I kind of liked Sentinel Prime. Like I kind of liked the characterization that John Hamm did there because it kind of made him seem like I don't know a little bit of a dork. Like if I don't know if that's the right word, but like Sentinel Prime is kind of like kind of goofy.
They did kind of make it obvious that he has like ulterior motives, even with like just his personalities. He'd be like, "Hey, I really like what you did there. By the way, I'm Sentinel Prime. I'm like the coolest guy ever. Don't you forget it."
Yeah. By the way, he's the guy that gets executed by Optimus.
Megatron.
No,
Oh, in the other movie,
in that
Transformers 3.
Transformers 3 movie where
Oh,
Optimus
okay.
Prime just brutally and mercilessly murders someone begging for his life. Yeah, the guy begging for his life is Sentinel.
That's crazy.
Like that's again, it's really funny like to watch that after Transformers 1 because Transformers like we cannot kill him, and then in like Transformers 3, like he kills him way more brutal than Megatron. Cause like in this one, like he's like, no, Optimus, no! Like he actually says, no, no, please don't kill me. And Optimus Prime is like, he's like, mercy is for the weak, and then he like pulls out a shotgun and just shoots him, man. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Transformers
Maybe
3, like a so bad it's good movie.
I don't know.
Transformers 3 is a crazy fucking movie.
I've never heard anything good about the sequels, so I outside of maybe that scene, I
I
probably
would
wouldn't see it
recommend.
for
I
myself.
would honestly recommend Transformers 3 because, like, of all the Transformers movie, it's probably the most batshit. Michael Bay was like a very angry man for like in some of his movies, like Bad Boys 2, Transformers 3, and Pain and Gain. Those movies are like make me think that like Michael Bay hates humanity just because like he does not have like he does not depict them in a very positive light.
So, visually, this movie looks really good, right?
I'd say so, yeah.
It's all right. I think the direction is good. Like that's what stood out to me because like I'm not really a fan of like the kind of like designs and CGI look, but I felt like it actually had like some pretty well directed stuff.
Well, there was one thing that I felt that was kind of weird, and that was they have like human-like mouths when everything else about them is metallic.
Yeah, that's
And
one thing I
that
thought I
just
wouldn't get used to. Like, when I saw clips that people posted of this movie, that was like the first thing I noticed about the character models. I'm like, how does that work? And I might be a little uncomfortable looking at this.
Yeah, it's weird at first, but I'll be honest, like after a while, I got used to it.
Yeah, it's not really like that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things.
But it's weird because like when I was starting, I was thinking, why don't they have like robotic mouths? But then later, when we see like Alpha Trion in the cave and he has like a robotic mouth, something about it seemed a bit off to me. I guess because like at that point, I had gotten used to everybody with their regular mouths. It just seemed weird that we're finally seeing a robot that doesn't have that.
You're not thinking about it. Did they ever address what happened to those aliens that were like that Sentinel was giving the shit to? Because it felt
Nope.
like it was a hostage situation. It felt like Sentinel had to do it, otherwise they would kill them all. And I was like, again, like a Bug's Life. Now I get why Megatron was mad, but I'm like, what you gonna do about them? Like,
I guess that's what the potential sequel is for, so that Optimus and the Autobots fight back against the Quintessons.
Maybe that's why the ending was left so clean, so they could further establish. I don't know. Again, this movie was made to make money, but as movies made to make money go, this is a pretty quality one. But to loop back to the animation for a second, so again, I don't know Transformers lore, but there's one scene I thought was really cool, and that is when Alpha Trion is explaining how he ended up in his situation, and it's told using like sand to tell the story.
Yeah.
Like literally, the sand takes the form. Like that was so cool. My question in Transformers lore: can they control sand? Like it looks cool as hell, but like I'm wondering, how are you doing that?
Maybe because he's a Prime, he just has like those powers. It's not like the other
It's an
Primes
integral
can do
plot
that.
point because it's an integral plot point because he fills like a watch with sand. It says, "Here, take this and show them the truth." I don't know.
Maybe Optimus can do that, but then again, he probably wouldn't know. When he first transformed into a truck, he didn't know how to do it. He just had to like constipate himself really hard, and even then he didn't even know he would transform into a truck. That's actually something I really like about when they first become Primes. They don't really know how to use their powers or what they will become when they do transform. Like when B transforms, like he has like the car shape, but his arms are like in place of where the wheels would be. He's like, I need wheels, I need wheels.
yeah, that was actually really fucking
flailing
funny. I
out.
thought that
was
visual was
funny.
hilarious. I thought that was a really funny visual. especially because of like how like the line delivery. It was like, "How do you really need?" Like it was so panicked. I was like,
Also
"Oh, yeah," I
later
was like,
on, guys, I have a mask and I have knife hands.
I thought it was funny how like when they gagged him, it was like he was like he was talking in his sleep. It's like especially in his sleep. The comic relief was like surprisingly like better because I thought it was gonna be like annoying, but I don't know. I feel like Bumblebee was used sparingly enough where it kind of landed. It always like narrowly avoids being the movie you think it's gonna be, which I appreciate.
Only the advertising took the same notes.
Anything else?
Thumbs up recommendation. Yeah, I'd recommend it, especially if you have kids.
And like I said, I chose this movie simply because of word of mouth, and I'd say it lived up to the hype.
If you've never seen Transformers in any way, shape, or form, or you're just vaguely familiar with the franchise, I'd say give this a shot. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Anyway, Red, you're up.
Yes. So we talked about a good movie, which we haven't I don't know what I'm saying. I'm recommending a piece of shit this week. And it's
Okay.
and quite frankly, it's been a long time coming.
Oh, fuck, here we go.
Yeah. Today we're gonna be revisiting a director we haven't talked about in a few years now. To Boldly Flee by Doug Walker.
Well, it had to happen at some point. I am not watching this by myself, for the record.
I know. We didn't watch the other two by ourselves. We're not gonna watch this one by ourselves. Especially because this is so fucking long.
It's like a
Oh my
4-hour
God.
movie, right?
How long
Yeah.
is this?
3 hours and 29 minutes. 3.5 hours.
Jesus
That's
Christ.
still long.
That's as long as Cholet, even longer.
We can take an intermission. I don't think there is one, but we can take one if you want.
Just like maybe at like the halfway point through the film. We need to have like a dedicated day to watch this. Like we can't watch it and then immediately record.
Make it a drinking game or something.
I don't drink.
You
well,
do
yeah,
now.
you
No.
can always start. You can always start.
But is this movie going to turn me into an alcoholic?
It might. You never know.
That's not how alcoholism works, but yeah. Anyway, you want to close this out?
This has been It's Always Sunny on Cybertron.
Roll out.